Let's just clear up what you think about these two articles first, because we've been trying to get you on for quite a while, and you haven't been forthcoming. One of these articles was after Paris. It's the reason Caroline Lucas has left, and it effectively blamed Western foreign policy for what happened. The other one, as we just heard, compared jihad to the international brigades who fought fascism in the last century. Do you reject and repudiate both those sentiments, or are they basically what you think?
No, we've rejected and we've removed those articles for this reason. We run a website which has hundreds of thousands of hits every week. We source the material on that website from a wide variety of blogs, as is common on campaigning websites.
So it was a mistake that they went up, is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was, but let me make this clear. It was a mistake they went up. We took them down immediately, and that's why it's illegitimate to make a comparison between those things, which are general information on the thing, with the official statements of the Stop the War Coalition, which then represent its democratically arrived at view on these matters.
So you don't think that Western foreign policy is the reason we live in a hellish world?
No, the Western foreign policy is a big contributor towards the growth of terrorism in the Middle East and towards the radicalisation of people in this country. That's not just the Stop the Wars view, that's a widely accepted view. The reason why we took that blog down is because it didn't represent our response to the Paris attacks, and it was being confused with a statement which would be this. It would be to say that those innocent people who were killed by terrorists were in some way to blame for their own deaths. We reject that absolutely.
Okay.
But what we do say is this, that the conditions under which those kind of attacks take place have been a result of Western foreign policy, and if that isn't part of the debate, then we lose a meaningful discussion politically that we should be having.
Jess Phillips, you think, like Caroline Lucas, that Jeremy Corbyn should quit this group, don't you?
Well, he already has quit as the chairman of the group, so I commend him for that. I think that at the moment it's not appropriate, considering, whilst I respect that those blog posts have been taken down, I think that, you know, the strength of feeling that those caused means that it would just be more advisable if Jeremy Corbyn just did what most MPs do for most fundraisers when they're asked to, you know, send a bottle of signed whiskey from the House of Commons shop.
But you know what a lot of people on that wing of politics think, don't you? I mean, Ken Livingstone effectively blamed Tony Blair for the 7/7 attacks, and he's one of Jeremy Corbyn's best buddies.
I'm not entirely sure why we are trying to do the bidding of Daesh by basically feeding into their propaganda. As somebody with a seat that is, you know, a potential tinderbox of where the communities, we have to make sure we remind the communities here that we live side by side happily, and I'm not sure why Ken Livingstone would, you know, basically act as a propaganda tool for their ends.
John Rees, are you being a propaganda tool? Are you being a useful idiot?
No, I'll tell you what it is that feeds the growth of the Islamic State. It's this. The Americans have been bombing in Syria for 15 months now. Just in the first month that they were bombing, 6,000 people joined the Islamic State. In the last year or so, the Americans say that they've killed 15,000 Islamic State fighters. But 15,000 more have stepped into their shoes so that the Islamic State is exactly the same size now as it was at the beginning of this bombing campaign. The problem with the war on terror and the problem with the bombing is it doesn't cure terrorism, it generates it.
So do you apply that to Putin's bombing as well?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why, as soon as the Russian bombing started, we issued a statement saying that we rejected that and that it should not happen.
Jess Phillips?
Well, I mean, I voted against the bombing for a number of different reasons. I think that ISIL are obviously doing a terrible job of getting their message across when we keep taking credit for work that they are clearly, they dislike the West, they dislike our way of life. I think that us saying that us bombing them is causing this, I think is naive. It may well be one factor, but I think it is naive and it is not at all helpful at the moment.
Wouldn't it just be dishonest, though, of Jeremy Corbyn to distance himself from a group that he fundamentally supports and chaired for years? You know, for him to walk away just because it's a bit embarrassing would be just dishonest politics, wouldn't it?
Well, no, I mean, it's sort of grown-up politics, actually, is the truth, because we all have to, when we become members of Parliament, we all have to step away from things that we did before.
Why?
And take a broader
things you believe in?
Well, not necessarily things I believe in, but, you know, I can't be basically a lobby voice for one and only one group and one way of thinking while I'm in here.
This is
That would be
last word, John.
disingenuous.
This is exactly what is corroding the political atmosphere, and it's exactly the reason why Jeremy Corbyn has such huge support, not only in the Labour Party, but among electors, because he says what he means, and he means what he says, and
I
he
say
sticks
what
by
I
his
mean,
principles. Yeah, but nobody can understand exactly what you're saying. That's the difference.
I'm really
What
sad
I'm
that
saying is I hope that the bombing, I hope I'm wrong in voting against, I hope that it does exactly what it intends to do, and I think
Jess
you
Phillips,
should hope that too.
And
we just leave
it's
it there.
happening the opposite way round.
Thank you both very much indeed for coming in.